Geekly! This week, we have our 2022 in review. We're going to give some 2023 resolutions and our usual nonsense. And now your host, Mike and Deglio.
Hey, folks, what's going on? Welcome to K&M Geekly, just a sneak peek at two geeks talking about some of the things that have gotten them through their year. Because it is the end, the official end of 2023, at least as we recognize it here in the civilization
about 10 hours
known as
left.
man. Yep. And New Year's has always been, well, it used to be like a really big deal in my family. It has subsequently gotten less of a big deal, but as Keith and I were talking about on Look at My Star Trek Toys this week, which you can find on our YouTube channel.
Ooh, which you're watching right now, unless you're listening to the podcast version that Mike has definitely launched.
Which is 100% happening in the new year.
Uh-huh.
I have started. I downloaded all the episodes. I just have to start the Anchor channel. Anyway, point is, on that show, we were talking a little bit about gratitude, and we've been kind of taking stock of things that have happened for the channel and for ourselves this year, and we thought, what better place to kind of just have a free-flow conversation about it than K&M Geekly, which is a channel where two geeks talk about whatever. And so that's what we're going to do, Keith. I didn't want to overplan it, so we're going to talk a little bit about the year that was.
Never in danger of overplanning something.
For ourselves personally, which people have started to appreciate our candor, as we've discovered. For us as geeks, and then maybe we should start, I think, maybe with talk a little bit about the channel, which we did with our patrons over on patreon.com.
Ooh, good segue.
About things we are looking forward to creating for the new year for our patrons. We express some gratitude with them. Every month we sit down for an AMA and chat with them, answer their questions, and just talk a little bit. And we're going to do that for all of you today. But before we do, I want to thank... Well, Keith, since I'm host, you're supposed to say these names. Go for it.
That's right. Our patrons currently are Brian Kaufman, Casey Clark, Cloudlover 69, Jason Moe, Andrew Hayes, Jorge Navoa, and the mysterious Ann, Worf's Boat Shivs, CRM Productions, Charles Babbage, at Grim Toys, Delusions at Noon, and Eric Wilson.
For those of you new to the channel, it's going to run ads.
Mike, what's happening right now?
So, Keith, the background I selected is the live feed from Times Square, where you and I both lived and met. Well, not in Times Square, New York City, and but of course it's running through a YouTube browser, and
you're not logged into your premium account. That's your problem.
I don't know if you can do that on OBS. Hey, people that make OBS, fix that. Anyway, so I wanted to start there. So this year on K&M Geekly, so Keith and I started, we should say, our first podcast was circa 2000.
2000. You know what? No, it was in the run-up to Fired at Nip. So I bet it was like 2008, 2009.
Okay, so let's say 2008. Oh my God, that's a long time ago.
That's such a long time ago.
I say this not in jest. We started a podcast before it was really a thing, before it blew up.
Yeah,
it was before Serial, before Rogan, before all that stuff.
People didn't know what they were.
No, neither did we, which was a problem. But just like then, we overdid it, we overteched it, we overthought it. And not much has changed. We've just found a little more consistency. So it's been a long time. And this year, we sort of, then the past 3 years, we've been doing it, I think, basically full time. It isn't, but it feels that way. And this year, we really started the YouTube channel and decided early on that we were going to go for organic growth, meaning we're not buying ads. We're not, doing all the bots and the thingy-ma-thoos. We're not following the people who say, give me X amount of dollars and grow your followers. And we're we just want to find people who enjoy the content and maybe enjoy our banter. And this year we crossed the 1,000 subscriber mark, which is a milestone because it helps us make a little bit of pennies from YouTube and
literally pennies.
But regardless, what it does is it churns your content into more people's feed. And so just in this week's Look at My Star Trek Toys, to be honest with everyone, we're starting to get comments from not the same folks, from new folks finding our content, and that's big deal for us because that's how growth starts. And so a thank you to those who have watched us and have gotten those numbers up and helped us kind of proliferate into everyone else's feeds. It means a lot. I don't know how to explain it. It's not even everybody starts podcasting with some sort of vanity, right? It's an ego something, absolutely,
Clearly.
100%. But if you're lucky, and I feel this way, it kind of grows beyond that, and it becomes about my friendship with you and our kinship with these people that watch us, and not everybody likes it, and that's cool. That's fine. That's how you shed that's how the cream rises, or whatever the analogy you want to choose is. So anyway, I don't have better words, Keith. Could you just take over and say thank you?
Yeah, well, I think I said yesterday that that so many of these projects begin with ego, and if you understand it and you really learn from it, it ends with connection. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the part that is most valuable about this experience. And it's been it's been a really exciting year for us in that regard. We've definitely had, like you said, we've had a lot of organic growth. And when you said, we chose to have it be organic, no, we didn't. We just couldn't afford to not do it organically.
Yeah, well, that's sort of a choice.
Well, you know what? As people who have gone into the arts for a living, poverty is the choice. We are specifically choosing, although, you're like a tech mogul, so you don't have that problem.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm 2022. Let's talk about 2022. Like, yeah. I'm and I think our growth here, the 1,000 subs is part of the year for me. Another big part of the year for me is related to this in a lot of ways, and that is learning new stuff, learning new tech. 2022 was the year that I learned OBS and really started to take that seriously and learn how to do all the things that you were doing. With this, it's an amazing free broadcasting software, and to be able to start using my, it works a lot like Photoshop, but with video, and really starting to fine tune that, starting to get my setup, starting to take this a little bit more seriously. And I think that is one of the things that I'm most grateful for, beyond the interpersonal part, and that is learning.
Yeah.
And I think that this has been a great year for learning, this type of production. Also, on my other sort of career, learning a great deal, taking a big technological step forward in music production, with the VST suite that I bought, the Contact suite, and really beginning to sort of expand that, and take a big leap with adapting that and the guitars and MIDI and that kind of stuff. That was I think one of my one of the things from 2022 that I'm going to take with me forever is the knowledge, is learning this new technology, and that's sort of what we talk about here. I at some point want to do a whole thing on the VSTs and the Contact suite and incorporating the Pro Tools and arranging, but that's been a big deal for me this year, and it's certainly expanded vastly my capabilities, and how I can present myself.
Yeah, I work for a tech company, as Keith mentioned, and I have lived my life with, and I'm sure many of you also suffer from a bit of an imposter syndrome, and just thinking that what I'm doing is not good enough, and that I'm pulling the wool over other people's eyes, and they don't know that I'm faking it, making it up as we go along. And it's taken me many years, and this year is one of the first years where I really settled into realizing that the truth of it is that there's truth to that, but it's not a con, it's a skill set. Right? I am a Swiss Army knife of learning tactically what I need to learn in the moment very quickly, and then becoming proficient at it, maybe never expert at it, but proficient enough to do work quickly and successfully. And that is, and finding that switch has been a lot of growth for me. And doing this podcast, and yeah, it changes a lot, and we joke on the show there's a lot of tech and stuff, but that's because we use a lot of cutting edge stuff that is being developed iteratively and nimbly. So all of the software we use is free. OBS, which is Open Broadcasting System. We also use a website, vdo.ninja, which is an NDI platform, which is a way to send high quality, low bit rate video and audio synchronized. So Keith and I have done everything we do remote. We've never done a show in the studio together.
No, never.
And yet somehow we don't have that annoying lag you find on Zoom and different stuff.
It's a miracle. I have no idea how they do it.
But these platforms are constantly pushing new software updates, things happening and you don't have time to prepare for. And we do our show ostensibly live, so there's a lot of glitches and whatnot. But rolling with those punches, fixing it on the fly, Keith and I, before we even start the cameras, have what probably is mundane to many people, but most of the people watching this channel probably would find interesting. We are troubleshooting, we're talking about stuff we just learned, or little hotkeys or tricks or whatnot, and it's rad. I love it. It's my favorite part, actually. I forget what I'm talking about, actually.
Well, you're talking about imposter syndrome, right? And I think that there's two things.
Oh, so all the skills and stuff we're learning on the fly here on the show, I'm actually using in my day job.
Right.
So it's kind of a great symbiosis.
Well, and I think the skill that you're talking about, and that is picking things up quickly and learning to understand things conceptually, zoomed out a little bit, so it's easier to roll with the punches, easier to adapt to changes because you understand conceptually how it works. And I think imposter syndrome, I feel the same way about that, right? Feeling like an imposter syndrome, as a writer, as a composer, or whatever. And I think two things. One, after X amount of hours and X amount of effort and work and learning and whatever, what you're doing is real.
Right.
You're not faking it anymore. You're actually doing real stuff. But on top of that, there's the realization that everybody's faking it. It's just like there is no sort of like authority that just assigns you're real, right? Everybody is just doing the same thing, and everybody feels like an imposter. And I don't care who it is. Everybody's, unless you're like Stephen Sondheim, everyone else is like, I hope this is good. I hope nobody notices, and I'm just going by the seat of my pants. And that's true of creators and tech and all of these things. So I think embracing those two things at the same time is useful.
Also, 2022, I think, to kind of push forward a little bit, one of the things that I think you and I were both a little fearful of, and many of us, but have kind of embraced, is that this was sort of the first year where I hesitate to even use the word normal, but there is an element of a return to normal behaviors. I did a show this year. I did
two shows
this year.
Three.
Yeah, really three, and a couple of gigs. I've been performing again, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In the midst of wearing masks, I got COVID during a run. They had to cancel some of the run. And then now I'm doing a show where we haven't tested, we haven't canceled, and no one's gotten sick. And that's like, my wife went back on Broadway, and we know friends and family who are doing shows and things. There's a semblance of a return. It's confusing and it's tricky, but the positive is that what I'm choosing to take from it, learning from it, is that any positive spin I put on anything is not without the weight of what's been lost. Yeah. And worse than what's been lost, the negative space of the lack of acknowledgement of what's been lost, because that's just how we deal with things politically and emotionally as humans, if you catch my drift. So I don't take any of that lightly, and I want to leave a little space for it here. But the positive is that what COVID does, what that shutdown has done, is it's sort of obliterated all of the previous rules. So even in a business that was like our business, the theater business, let's say, which was used to be run by the same people, doing the same things the same way, those rules have kind of shed away. Auditions are changing. The way art is being consumed is changing. The people who used to be the power players, we're all kind of in the same boat now, so opportunities are arising. I think there is room for fresh growth that is positive, and I'm looking forward to that. And the trick for me, and I think for many, we'll talk about when we get to our resolutions, is embracing that and taking your stake of it, claiming your stake. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's true. Yeah, it's interesting because we're sort of, we're never going to go back to pre-COVID times, but we are progressing towards the third thing, right? We had the lockdown, we had before times, we had the in times, and now we're sort of in the, we're figuring out how to live with it, because it is every bit still here. The vaccines made all the difference in the world. It turned it from something that was life-threatening to a lot of people to something that is still life-threatening to some people, but for most people, it's an inconvenience. And that's, that doesn't make it any easier for the people to whom it is life-threatening. And they're people very, very close to me who are dealing with that. But I will say 2022 was the year that I went back and I started seeing live shows again. And and the feeling of being rejuvenated by that and inspired by that. And, and yes, I'm going in there, I'm wearing a mask. You know what? Suck it up. I'm getting to see a live Broadway show, and that is worth it. So, that was a really nice return to, touch base with the thing that I love, the thing that inspires me, the thing that gets me up every day. So that was a big part of it. And it's been a, look, I'll be honest with you, it's been a tough year for me, right? I don't think I can talk about 2022 without referencing, like, I have some pretty big life changes happening right now that I can't really talk about yet, but I will. And so that definitely, they're not necessarily negative, but certainly hard. And so I can say with that, today it's New Year's Eve, right? We're, for us here, won't be for you. It'll be New Year's Eve. Like, it's, it's a little bit like, oof, yikes, what a year for me personally. Which I don't, it's not something that we talk about Star Trek. We don't talk about that kind of stuff, but I can say that I'm leaving the year better than I arrived in it. And I think that there's great, I'm grateful for that. As difficult as it was, I'm better off New Year's Eve 22 than I was New Year's Eve 21.
Yeah. Keith, I'll just take a space to say, watching you grow emotionally over the past year, 2 years, has been like a visceral and very apparent experience. I've seen you grow emotionally, not just because you're getting older and more mature and dealing with difficult things, but because you've found a way to express those things that isn't always artistically based. Like, I've found you being able to just kind of speak about things a little bit more and not just cover them with a joke or be self-deprecating. And that's challenging. I know that's hard to do, and you've been able to do it. And some of that on the internet, which is like a non-Keith thing. So
yeah. And I think that the change for me in that is less feeling that way and more being willing to express it in this venue.
Sure.
And I think that is, I think what has changed is my comfortability with what we're doing here and sort of trusting that it's okay to open that door to that type of vulnerability.
I mean, look, as you get older, people, as you know, or as you'll learn if you're younger, everyone is up. Every one of us. It's something we share. And once you kind of realize that we all share that, it's much easier to kind of talk about it. And we should.
No, for sure. And the challenges that we all go through, I think it's part of the human experience, right? To feel like I'm the only one who's ever gone through this.
She needed a hero, Keith. So that's what she became.
Yeah. Well, there it is. It's like, I think we all feel like, oh God, I'm the only one who's ever gone through this. No one understands what I feel like. And if you can find the space to zoom out a little bit and communicate with people, you realize, oh crap, like almost everybody has gone through what I'm going through. And if you don't, you understand it better than you'd ever expect. And I think that is I think that's important. And I think it's very healing to realize, oh, you're not alone. And it is, you do have to really be diligent about zooming out and see, because like when you're going through something difficult, right, you get tunnel vision. You get really focused on your own experience, and you don't see other things and other people, even good things and bad things and connections and that kind of stuff. So you really you don't stop to think about, well, who else in my life has gone through this?
Yeah.
Like, and you realize, oh, kind of everybody. And you think like, no, this is all me. And so it's, being able to zoom out and take a deep breath, I think is a incredibly important skill to learn.
Taking that breath is something I'll jumpstart the other conversation.
Yeah, let's do some resolutions.
This one is an honorable mention because it has to do with our channel before we get into, because mine, as I started writing these down, I made a little fire pit this morning and I was writing down some of our resolutions, and I'm feeling a little wistful. I'm also closing a show tomorrow, which is always a time of kind of reflection.
It's crazy how no matter what the experience is and whether you liked the job or not, it's still, you still have a little bit of that high school. Oh God, I'm closing a show.
Yeah. This one, and the things I've done this year has been like slaying dragons, because I find that I keep, as much as I think I grow, I keep challenging myself by convincing myself I'm terrible at what I'm trying to do, and so it's always slaying a dragon. Anyway, I did want to say that one of the things I do want to do this year is I found that I'm an avid video gamer. I love to play video games. I love geek stuff. And this year has been full of a lot of feeling overwhelmed. There's so much content. There's so much TV. There's so many games I want to play. They're so long. There's so much that I found myself resistant to. I can't tell you how many games I saw through to credits. And there were some great games this year, and I didn't really finish any. And I only read like 3 books. I didn't read any comics. A lot of the stuff I've watched and enjoyed has been either for the show or has just been because it. So one of my goals is to zoom out, like Keith said, take a breath, and start enjoying some things again. I want the toy show I love, and my wife's bought me a lot of toys. I want to take them out of their box. I want to put them on the Patreon. I want to play. I want to play some video games that, and enjoy them and see them through and read some comics and just kind of have fun again. I want to give myself the space to have some fun. Because as Keith said, there's been a lot of personal challenges in everybody's life, but also like just fiscal challenges and being a grown-up. And, Jen's been away for a bunch of months and so we're kind of reevaluating that and how there's so much stuff about being a grown-up. So I want to get back to having a little bit of fun. That's where I'm going to start. Yeah,
I like that. And I think that, you're talking about mental health, and number one for me is taking care of my physical health. Right. It is, and this is a 2-parter, right? Because, my getting older, right. And like, it's been a tough, few years, and you start to, you lose track of your physical health, and you don't take care of yourself the way that you should. And so like I'm actively doing that, and and look, I got to deal with my weight, right? I'm significantly overweight, and I need to work on that for my health and for my happiness. But here's the part 2, right? Part 2 for me is anything related to my weight. My entire life has been tied up in shame. Has been utterly tied up in shame, and it's caused me to sort of like yo-yo throughout my life. And I've been overweight, I've been underweight, I've been all over the place, and never once once I'm conscious of it, never felt comfortable, never felt okay at whatever I was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, and I think that happened very young, with a, fixation on that I didn't necessarily choose,
Mm-hmm.
but was very impactful. And I spent all of my childhood feeling ashamed of my weight and feeling fat and feeling like nobody liked me because of that. Looking back on it, I wasn't, but that was sort of imposed on me. And I've carried that with me forever. And so now it's really difficult for me to find the motivation I need to turn that around, not based on shame.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to find a positive motivation for it that is real and is not just a shiny, happy face with an undercurrent of like, you're ashamed and you're a fat slob and nobody will ever take you seriously. No one will ever, you'll always be less. You'll always be whatever.
Or you're running away from something, right? Like
you're running away from
this thing, so I'm going to go towards that.
Well, and just like always embarrassed,
mm-hmm.
always trying to adjust and trying to like pretend like I'm not and hide and whatever. And that that's a big challenge for me, right? And I'm gonna have to work. And it is one of the things that I want to work on. I want to work on those two things together.
Yeah.
Because I I want to get healthy in a healthy way, and I think disentangling those two things is going to be part of my work for this year.
So, I'm glad you said that, because for me, I have the same thing: health, diet, exercise. But that's on everybody's list, right? For me, here's the word: moderation, and here's why. So first things first. Here are the labs, right? They don't lie.
You got your labs.
I got my labs. And so it's been 6 months since my last lab, and they've significantly improved with the help of some medication and a slight change in my diet and a lot of exercise and things. Now, I struggle. I'm sure it's based in many of the same things, but there's also like a severe case of body dysmorphia for me. Doesn't matter even, we've both seen each other in various shapes and sizes.
Kind of all of the above, right?
Yeah. And regardless of what I look like, I see one thing in my head, and it's not something I enjoy. And it's taken years to kind of realize that will always be the case. I don't think that's going to go away. I don't know that it will, but that's okay, because there are metrics that I can use to decide that, right? Because I've starved myself. I've run marathons until my knees exploded. Like I've done that. I tend to go, I'm sure you're similar. I tend to go wildly obsessive to achieve, and then I achieve it, and then I turn the other way, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I hate restricting myself, blah, blah, and I go the other way. Right. And COVID was a great excuse for all of us to like excuse away bad habits. Right.
Yeah.
For mental health, I get it. It's not even a judgment. And so the goal for me right now and this year is to find the best regular guy I can be without doing insane things that are not healthy for my physical or mental health, right? I could get skinny, but if I'm not eating enough calories or getting enough protein and I'm just, and I'm not sleeping because I'm exercising too much or drinking too much coffee, well, that's not the solution. So it's reframing the goal to achieve better health so that I can be around longer to do the things I want to do and be with the people I want to be with in a moderation sense, right? So not going nuts. Yeah, do I want to go because I've been kind of losing a little weight and feeling better lately? I should run 6 times a week. Well, no. You've been doing okay running 3 times a week. Let's stay there, and respecting that we're getting older.
Yeah, well, and for me, it's like I want to get to a more positive, a healthier place, but not so people will like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not so that I'm not embarrassed to be seen.
Sure.
And like the motivation for me, the reason why I'm doing it is the thing that I struggle with.
Yeah, sure.
And because, and like you just said, when we were touring, right?
When I met you,
I was underweight.
You were like
could see my
$1.35 soaking wet.
Well, I wasn't that. I was. I mean,
you're a skinny guy.
I was like unhealthily too skinny. Like
well,
if you saw,
I wouldn't have told you that because at the time I thought that was your body type. I didn't know you.
No,
yeah, you know
no. I mean, like but like you see me in the pool, you could see my spine, and I still thought I was fat.
Well,
right, and
we share that,
and I didn't. It didn't give me the confidence I thought it was going to. I still felt not good enough. I was still terrified of girls. I was still whatever. Like they're like because it didn't make me feel better about myself. It made me feel better about not being overweight, and I was proud of that, but not kind of for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any interest in getting back there again. I'd like to find the middle ground. And anyway,
I want to get off my blood pressure medicine. You know what I mean? Like that's what I want to do. I want to stay non-diabetic. I want to stay off antidepressants unless I need them. Like, which I guess leads to the second part of that, which is mental health. Keith and I, as you can tell, are huge proponents of therapy.
Yeah.
And I want to continue that again this year, and I want to be in a better marriage. I think I'm in a good one, and I want to be in a better one. I want to continue to grow in that regard and be better and find ways to communicate better. So we're talking about maybe starting couples therapy, which has a stigma of its own, right? Which is it means there's trouble. Well, it doesn't have to. Right? Why? If two people want to learn to cook, you go to a cooking class, right? I
highly recommend it, and it helps you. It helps you make whatever the situation is better, and it doesn't mean, fuck the stigma of all mental health care.
But
fuck all that.
But the mental health thing, I actually want to mention, and I want to put it out there as a bit of what's the word? Oh my God! What happens? What do you call it when you're on a diet and you call somebody and you're like, you're going to be my person who checks in on me and makes sure I'm doing the thing?
Your sponsor.
Yeah, but not that.
Whatever.
I'm just putting it out there so that I put
accountability.
It out there. Accountability. That's it. So, I found in a lot of my friendships and a lot of the things I do, and even in my family, I tend to be a pretty good facilitator and mediator of this type of conversation, an emotional conversation, to help people kind of work through what they're dealing with and maybe help brainstorm strategies. I'm so much more acute at it than with other folks than with myself, right? Which I think is natural. And so, I've been talking for a few years now and more recently, pretty seriously about kind of re-educating myself to kind of get either certified or licensed in some sort of coaching and or maybe not a clinical side. I think I'm much more casual than that, but to kind of seriously pursue that education to help be that for real. And
you never told me that.
No, it's because there was a time, Keith, talking about shame, where everybody's like, I'm a life coach, I'm a this, I'm a that, and
right.
And I don't like that guru kind of thing. So but I'm more interested in family dynamics and emotional availability, mostly because I see a lot of repression in my family, and I seem to be one of the only people who has even a remote channel to emotional communication. And so if that's something I have, a skill that I have, I want to learn about it. And I also, that tag teams with my story, as you've heard me tell many times, is very anti-education and and the more I go back and I revisit that in therapy and in conversation, I realize that I'm so hard on myself about it. And I equate it to it's a failure. I'll bullet point it.
You equate having been raised in that environment as a failure?
No, just that I just did not pursue that I wasn't ready for advanced education at the time it was forced upon me, and thus have developed then it's never for me. And then, of course, our country throws financial burden upon you and student debt and whatnot. I just kind of wrote it off. And it's not that I'm anti-education. In fact, I'm interested about I kind of want to go back to school, I guess is what I'm saying, and learn something, and maybe not traditional, kind of like I don't know what that means, but I want to give myself the space and freedom to pursue other things, whether it means to do it for a job or not. I want to. We can do whatever the fuck we want, and so I want to give myself that space educationally.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it's sort of the same thing that I was talking about to start. Learning new skills, learning new things, expanding what you can do. It's funny because I just finished Fleischman's in Trouble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have not finished it. All right. No. Well, I won't give any spoilers, but basically, that show is the best encapsulation of the midlife crisis that I've ever seen. And it's a show. I need to tell Eric, I'm like, I really loved your show, but fuck you, because it's about us.
Yeah, it is.
It's literally
us,
about,
but yeah.
Yes, it's about us with money. But like exactly the age that we are, dealing with the exact existential crises that come with, all right, well, part one of life is now set. Are we trapped here? Do we want to have a different part two? Do we like the life that we have? Do we want a different life? Do we have regrets about the age? And it's just sort of the, it sort of finishes with the thesis statement. This isn't like a spoiler plot wise, but it's like, you are as young as you will ever be right now. And right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I sort of wrote a song about it in my new show. It's just sort of the same concept. Like, you are always as young as you're ever going to be. And what are you going to do now? And that is, the sort of humbling and eye-opening and existential crisis triggering as it is for people in our middle age, just like we are now. And even to like term it that way. Now, of course, middle age when our parents was 40. Now, is it middle age? We don't know right now.
So I'm going to piggyback to the next thing, because we're segueing pretty well here. So it's twofold. This year is also big for me to embrace that youth / that non-youth, right? So as we were kind of joking about yesterday, like, I've always had gray hair since I was in my early 20s, but I've had to dye it my whole life because, obviously when you're young and in this business, you want to play young roles and different things, but it's kind of, that practice sort of implanted itself in my head. And so I've kind of been running away from being 40, being 42, right? Yeah. And if I am to have any sort of career to continue performing, right? And I don't know if it'll be a full, I don't know. I'm not, let me say that's growth. I'm not basing my worth or life on that. I enjoy it. I feel like I'm pretty good at it. We'll see. But if there's going to be any more of it, it has to be with this guy. Because I don't want to do any of the other stuff anymore. I just don't. And
well, as I said to you offline yesterday before we were on the air, I'm like, your silver hair is not a liability. It's a fucking asset.
Right.
It is unique, and I would kill to have your hair, right? And everybody would, and like there's tons of people who would. It makes you more interesting. It makes you unique. Most people don't have that.
Right.
And like we have enough, people trying to look 32. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We got enough of those guys. We don't have a lot of those of people with the silver, right? It's an asset, not a liability.
Well, speaking of that, so the other part of that is, I love performing, but I also feel like I'm a storyteller and I'm not telling any stories, and I'm channeling and I'm interpreting a lot of people's stories. And so, so Keith, I'll say it. I love you, buddy. I respect you. But I've often been intimidated by you because you have such a facility with the work you do, and how, I don't want to say it comes to you easy because I know how much hard work it is, but how quickly and how unafraid you are to put pen to paper. I've told you this before. It's a difficult thing for me. Maybe it's shame. I guess it is. I used to think it was laziness. I don't think it's that. But I've enjoyed our collaboration, and I think I said this to you in jest in the show elsewhere. I want to explore, and I don't know if it's the Christmas show or if it's something else, but I want to explore working with you collaboratively in the space where we met. Creating and telling a story, because and I don't
Do you want to write Titanic 2?
I feel like it's an untold story.
What happens to that bellhop?
It floats. It doesn't. Spoiler. So yeah, I want to explore that, and I think it'll challenge me, and it might be a failure of an experiment, but maybe it won't be. I know you got other things in the fire, but it's something I want to broach. I want to broach. Yes, I want to broach this year. So that's on my list as well. Believe it or not.
I love that. I love that. I mean, it's like you've always had the talent. You've always been doing it. I mean, right. I have demos of songs you wrote from 20 years ago floating somewhere in the files here. Yeah, well, and that it's interesting because that dovetails with my resolutions, right? And that is, I'm doing tons of writing, but I'm not really sharing it. And I think talking about the motivation issue again, right? I've shared my work, one of the reasons I don't share my work is I'm afraid of people thinking my motivations for sharing it are like, look at me, look how cool I am, sort of like ego nonsense. And because talk about another thing that was put on me, and
we're all that way. You got to be a clown, right?
Well, it's not that, like, being, and I think at some point it was partially true, but like being smacked down for putting myself out there as some sort of an egomaniac, as some sort of a narcissist or whatever, and like,
it's so funny. I never saw that. I never see that in you. It's always been a respect of just like, this is a guy who just like has shit to say and he's not afraid to say it.
Well, and that's and I mean, listen
to Keith's album. Check out KeithVarneyWriter.com. Go on YouTube, whatever. He's just released an album, and it is, if that's not an authentic human being saying, "Here's what I'm feeling," listen to it. I don't know what it is. There's no ego in that.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not saying I'm not. It's not like I'm devoid of ego, and I'm not saying I'm devoid of the motivation of like, pay attention to me. Right,
we're on the internet.
That's everybody. Yeah. That's all people, and I think that the being smacked down for it in various ways causes me to be very shy about putting stuff out there that is some of it is the stuff that's just like the me stuff, and part of it is the imposter syndrome. Whether it's a show, I have an imposter syndrome about trying to promote a show, trying to get that out there. If it's my album or it's some more personal stuff, then I'm afraid of the ego stuff. So I end up like not posting anything anywhere, not sharing anything with anybody. And so I have libraries of material that the majority of everything I've ever written, less than 10 people I've ever seen, heard, or read. And so I think I need to get over that and start sharing it more. And part of it is to try to get things commercially produced. And, like my new show, The Road Home, I'm trying to get that produced. I'm trying to go out there and actively sell it and put it out there. But there's just a lot of the rest of my work I would just like to have to share.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not so that people tell me how awesome I am. That I'm not interested in. I mean, sure, great, but that's not why I'm doing it. It's not to get attention. It's not so people think I'm the shit. It's because I've been writing all this stuff and I'm proud of it and I want to share it. And it's part of the art form. Part of art, right, is sharing it.
I think what I'm hearing you say, Keith, and what I'm hearing myself say, and I think there's so much nuance to it, but to really boil it down, to bring us just back to the word we started this all with, which is shame in any form, shape, or size. You and I as artists at least, as people too, but as artists, let's keep it here, want to claim our space without judgment or need. That makes sense, right? There's no problem. I think artists in general, every human, I'm just focusing on art right now, can have their space, can have their voice, and it can be unique and individual, and it does not have to come with preconception. It doesn't have to come with judgment. And it doesn't have to come with an end result. Now, granted, I'd love for more people to hear your work too. Like, I would love to be in your shows. I would love to have them running, like all of those things. But if not, if XYZ doesn't happen, because we know this business well enough to know that it might not, for whatever reason, that doesn't mean it's any less worthy to be heard. So,
well, and I think that here's the motivation that I don't think people understand in sharing, at least, speaking for myself, sharing my work, my songs, my books, my plays, my musicals, whatever it is. People interpret it to begin with is like, oh man, I'm so freaking awesome. I wrote this song. Like, I can sing so high, blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm so cool. And like, I want to make all money. And I want to show that I'm better than everybody else. And I want to be on a billboard. Look at blah, blah, blah. When, you know what the reality is? Look at my Star Trek toys, right? The show that built this channel.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I'm bragging about all the Star Trek toys that I have. It's, I love these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited about these things, and I love these things, and I want to just talk about them. I want to I want to talk in the comments about the specifics of the little toy. I just want to show my toys, right? I cooked something. I want to show my toys.
I want to show my toys.
And,
I often say
that's it.
I often say, I so rarely, almost never on stage do I play my instrument. There's shame involved. I'm not as good as I should be. I'm not that blah, 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 blah. But also, I don't want to be that guy. Oh, there's that guy playing a song on his guitar, right? There's that guy. And there's that guy, and then that's where I feel safe, right? And that's me. I'm person B. Jen says it all the time, my wife. She's like, you're your best performer when you're playing a song because you are you. And I was like, that's because I feel safe there.
Well, and I think this, and I've had a hard time describing this to people in my life sometimes, that my work is me.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to, at least for me, if you want to know who I am, if you care to see me as a person, look at my work. Mm-hmm. That is how I express myself. That is how I reveal who I am. And it's hard to understand because people ascribe different motivations to it. I'm saying, look at me, see me, this is who I am. And they're interpreting it as, look at me, I'm awesome. Wah! And it's really hard to sort of square those two things. And I think the fear of people interpreting it as the second one prevents me from showing the first one.
Yeah. And the conversation we're having, and we're not, is, and I'm pretty sure it's the fact that I don't think people are really thinking that. The fear is you think people are thinking that. So I don't know.
Yes.
It's hard to diagnose
sometimes
that.
That's true.
Yeah.
And sometimes they actually are thinking that.
Sure.
And I think the real work for me is the people who think that way are gonna think that way, and I need to let that go, so I can communicate with the people who get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like it's a huge freaking leap for me.
It is. It's a personal leap, but you have to remember, and as you get older too, as circles shrink, as your friendship circles and such shrink, is to remember that. Is to trust that the people you've kept in the circle have your back. And I'm going to tell you a funny realization I had of that this year, and it sounds so stupid, but it's the truth. Regardless, and this show was probably the most vulnerable goddamn thing we've ever done. I don't know how this devolved, but It doesn't matter. Every time I click send on an upload video, it's jumping off a roof without a net, because the internet can take anything you say and make it something else. That is the internet, right? Even on a Star Trek Toys channel. Somebody came for me because of something I said on it doesn't even matter. It's not like we have millions of views. But my buddy Keith, within half an hour, came for this person and had my back. And that's such a silly, it was so silly. I'm not even going to give you the details. It doesn't matter, right? But I remembered that I have people who have my back. And that's huge. That is so huge. And I got to remember that. That's another resolution. Remember, people have your back.
Well,
right?
And remember that just because you are not understood or liked by everyone doesn't mean you are not understood and liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, that's one of the things that the internet is an asset and a liability with that, because you find people who get you, and you find people who are not going to like you, and you have to sort of square that circle. You have to sort of adjust all of that. So anyway, this is a long way of saying, one of my resolutions is to put out more of the stuff that I'm working on, and I have an idea that I've been sort of cooking around, and I can't quite figure out how to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been thinking about this for a while. So I have, I don't know, 7 or 8 musicals and literally hundreds of songs that I've written that aren't going anywhere, that they don't work. Mm-hmm. It's for any number of different reasons, they're not going to happen. And however, there's a piece of all of it that I'm really proud of, that I think is interesting, that I think is good. And I'm kicking around the idea of doing an album called Interesting Failures, where I pick the best 2 or 3 songs from each of these failed shows, and bringing on some of my friends or folks who like people would pay any attention to, and have them record the songs and just throw the album up there of like, this is the 11 o'clock number from a show that will never happen, but I'm proud of it. So check this out. I think, whether I do a concert at 54 Below or just do the studio album, something like that, I don't know. Like I was playing through an old show this morning because I had an hour, and I was just like, yeah, this show's a disaster, but man, that's a good song. I'd like to show that to people and and maybe that's a way to do it. I don't know.
Oh, I have so many ideas for that for you. We can chat about it. There's so many ways you can present that, and I hope to goodness you do. That's a great idea, because like you said, I was listening to an old hard drive of old really bad songs I had recorded or written, and then it's like I want to get to a place where I can listen to that without cringe and be like, here's the nugget of beauty in that, because I'm never gonna feel things the way I felt that thing when I was 17, because when you're 17 you feel things in a way that you can never have back. And so it might be a shitty song, but I captured that feeling in those 3 lines, right? That's beautiful.
There's something so technicolor about those feelings. It's like those, for me, it was like high school, college.
And we were on that cusp, right? Before you started documenting every second of every moment. Right. Like a lot of kids, we talk about that all the time. Like, yeah, it sucks that I don't have every moment of my childhood, but I've got those 40 pictures, and there's so many stories that have to be told in that one snapshot. So,
and for me, I don't have 40 pictures. I have 40 songs.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
And those are the snapshots to me. And, and I wrote differently then. It was just so instinctual and emotional and without much thought put into it. And I look back on that stuff and okay, technically there are some issues there or whatever, but it's pure.
And Keith now,
it's honest.
And Keith, or a grown-up person, Keith now can look past the bit. When you are 17 and 18, there is a bit of look at me, not just because pay attention to me, but also because my guess would be there were some family or personal things that prevented you from getting that recognition in other ways. And so you were screaming in this music.
Oh, 100%. And like there's one particular show I think about that is just so volcanically angry and just like yeah, it's like a primal scream of a musical. And at that point, I hadn't even done enough therapy to know what I was screaming about. Yeah. I just knew I wanted to scream.
It's like an archaeologist, right? You sifting through a lot of dirt to find those couple of bones, right?
Like this kid has all these feelings and doesn't even know it.
Well,
but it's coming out in this music.
That's a really big thing. Well, this is not a therapy podcast, but it is today. Being able to look back at that Keith, who's a part of you, or that Mike, I'll include myself here
for sure,
and to stop judging them and maybe loving them a little bit and giving them that recognition and support that they needed then, you can give now. And I think for you, revisiting that music and finding the beauty in it instead of the judgment is actually really beautiful.
Oh yeah, no, I have a lot of empathy for that kid, and I have respect for him. I respect his audacity, and I respect, and I could tell that the things that I'm good at now, I was good at then. I filled in the holes in some of the things I was not strong in, but the things that made me that I'm good at now were the things I'm good at then. And that was always, energy, melody, intensity, whatever. Like those are the things that I bring to the table. And that was all there. Taste was not one of them.
Well, it's that's subjective anyway. And it's it's allowed to change. Let's just pop a couple other things. We've got a couple minutes. We'll cap it at an hour here. The last huge one on my list is, another thing that has been an issue with my relationship with my wife. Collectively, it's not a conflict. It's just we are bad at making decisions. We wanted to move out of New York for a bunch of years, but could never pull the trigger. Like we're both we give each other so much space that we don't do a lot of firm decision making. We both know that, we acknowledge that. But one thing we've both said about this coming year is we are either going to complete or at least begin the process of buying a home. And that might be, a condo, it might be a house, it might be just starting a build project on some land somewhere. I don't know what it is or what it entails or where it is. Those are things to be determined, but it's going to begin this year. And even making that, kind of proclamation with one another is big for us. I think we've always looked at it as a very limiting, a preventative measure. Like it's like, oh, well, then you can't go do a show here, can't you? And we realize that, like, look, that none of that is true. That's all just fear and shame of having financial problems early in life and thinking I'll never be able to do this. And it's just, this is a year of shedding that.
I'll say this as the guy who's been yelling at you to do this for years. You have financial dysmorphia.
Yeah.
And like what you're capable of doing is wildly different than your anxiety is telling you.
100%. 100% accurate. Yeah. So that's a lot of the stuff. As you can tell, Keith and I we are just raw
New Year's
nerves.
Which is different than what?
Yeah, that's true. But it does seem like there's a lot of a positive outlook, which is good mojo. Since this is for the wide channel and who knows who will see it, let me say, be vulnerable, because Keith and I are if you could find our old stuff and our old, we don't generally expose this type of emotional vulnerability, and there's something very freeing about it. So be honest with yourself in your resolutions and in the things you choose to do, but also be kind to yourself, right? Don't look as anything. I would urge you to not look at any of your resolutions as having to change yourself. I would look more at urging yourself to evolve and to grow. And as Keith has been talking about all day, find a positive motivation rather than one based in shame or fear, I would say.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And
we're gonna do a Let's Play. We're gonna do more content. I want to go to toy fairs and start I want to jumpstart the channel and like find out what it's going to evolve to be when we run out of your toys, Keith. So I would like to start reviewing other people's. I've got a lot of big thoughts for the channel too.
It's got plans.
Yeah,
it's got plans. So hey, if you have actually sat and listened to all of this, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
I don't know. This isn't really a geek topic or a toy topic or anything. We just talked.
No.
So if you enjoyed this, thank you.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, you're not listening to me
cool.
talk right now. Mm-hmm. So so we'll see you back in 2023. I got to change the copyright at the bottom of the screen there. This is our last time.
Oh, that's true. Well, I'm gonna. In 2020, that's my last resolution, Keith. I'm going to have a proper tag for this. I think I was kind of I was honing in on something. I was saying, what was I saying? I've been saying, don't let anyone yuck your yum. Continue doing the things you find fun, and keep on geeking on. I like it.
All right, I'll buy that.